The gunfire started during the second act. Marcus was mid-trick, making a rope appear to defy gravity, when the first shots echoed from somewhere above deck, distant, muffled by the ship's thick walls, but unmistakable. The audience froze. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was part of the show. Marcus knew better. His hands continued the trick on autopilot while his mind shifted immediately into threat assessment mode. The pattern of the shots, the direction, the spacing between volleys, not fireworks, not a drill, automatic weapons, multiple shooters, coordinated. The ship's PA system crackled to life. All passengers remain in your current location. This is not a drill. Crew to emergency stations. Panic rippled through the theater. Parents grabbed children. Elderly passengers clutched armrests. Marcus set down the rope carefully and stepped to the front of the stage, his showman's smile replaced by something harder, older, more familiar. "Everyone stay calm," he said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made 300 people stop moving and listen. "I need you to trust me. We're going to get through this, but you need to follow my instructions exactly." Someone in the back shouted, "Who the hell are you to give orders?" Marcus looked directly at him, and for the first time in 8 years, let the mask slip. 23 years Navy SEAL, maritime counter-piracy operations, and right now, I'm the only thing standing between you and whoever just boarded this ship. Welcome to True Human Tales. Before we continue this powerful story of hidden identity, maritime danger, and unexpected heroism, tell me in the comments, from which city in the world are you watching this video today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We're building a community that honors those who protect us in ways we never see coming. Let's get started. The Pacific Dream was a luxury cruise liner, one of Royal Star Cruises' flagship vessels, 78,000 tons of floating resort complete with pools, restaurants, a casino, spa facilities, and entertainment venues that rivaled anything on land. She carried 1,800 passengers and 700 crew on week-long Caribbean routes that departed from Miami every Sunday. Tonight was Thursday. The ship was 4 days into a 7-night cruise, currently positioned approximately 300 miles northeast of Jamaica, heading toward Grand Cayman. The weather was perfect. Calm seas, clear skies, the kind of conditions that made passengers forget they were on a ship at all. Marcus Webb had been the ship's primary entertainer for the past 8 months, performing 2 90-minute magic shows per cruise in the Grand Theater, a 900-seat venue decorated in red velvet and gold trim that somehow managed to feel intimate despite its size. At 61, Marcus looked exactly like what passengers expected from a cruise ship magician. Silver hair, perfectly styled, friendly smile, expensive but slightly dated tuxedo, the kind of gentle presence that made families feel safe bringing their children to shows. His magic was good but not groundbreaking. Card tricks, rope illusions, dove productions, the occasional escape from a locked box, classic entertainment that had been delighting audiences for generations. What none of those audiences knew, what the cruise line's HR department had no record of because Marcus had legally changed his name before applying, was that Marcus Webb had once been Senior Chief Petty Officer Marcus James Wellington, SEAL Team 3, with a specialty in visit, board, search, and seizure operations. From 1985 to 2008, he'd conducted missions that most people only saw in movies. He'd boarded hostile vessels in the Persian Gulf during Desert Storm, interdicted drug smuggling operations in international waters, conducted counter-piracy operations off the Somali coast during the height of the crisis in the mid-2000s. His service record included 4 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, and commendations from 3 different administrations. He'd retired at 44, too many injuries and too many memories making continued service impossible. He'd tried civilian security work, but found it hollow after decades of real operational experience. For 3 years, he'd drifted, teaching self-defense classes, consulting for maritime security companies, drinking too much and sleeping too little. Then he discovered magic, not as a hobby, but as therapy. A counselor at the VA had suggested learning a skill completely unrelated to military service, something creative that required focus but didn't trigger combat stress. Marcus had picked up a deck of cards, watched some YouTube tutorials, and found something unexpected: peace. The precision required for sleight of hand was similar to weapons handling: muscle memory, repetition, control. But instead of destruction, it created wonder. Instead of taking lives, it brought joy. Over 5 years, he'd transformed himself from amateur hobbyist to professional entertainer, eventually landing the cruise ship circuit where his age and gentle demeanor made him perfect family-friendly entertainment. For 8 years, it had been exactly what he needed: the ocean without the danger, performance without the violence, a second life that had nothing to do with his first. Until tonight. The theater's emergency lighting kicked on, dim red bulbs that cast everything in an ominous glow. Marcus stood at the front of the stage, 300 frightened faces looking at him for guidance, for reassurance, for someone to tell them this wasn't really happening. "Sir," a woman in the third row called out, her voice shaking, "what do we do?" Marcus scanned the theater's layout with trained eyes. 2 main exits, the primary doors at the rear where passengers had entered, and emergency exits on either side of the stage. The theater was on deck 7, midship, with crew corridors directly behind the stage that led to service elevators and stairwells. "First," Marcus said, his voice calm but carrying authority, "everyone needs to get down. Not on the floor yet, but low in your seats. Make yourselves small. If you have children, keep them between you and your spouse." People obeyed immediately. Something in his tone made it impossible not to. "Second," he continued, "turn off your phones. Not silent. Off. Any light source could draw attention, more compliance." The theater dimmed further as screens went dark. "Third, and this is important, no one moves unless I give the order. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay here, you stay quiet, and you trust that I know what I'm doing." A man in his 50s, wearing a polo shirt that screamed "retired military," spoke up. "You said you were a SEAL. What kind of operations?" Marcus met his eyes. "The kind where we boarded ships that didn't want to be boarded. Took control, secured passengers, neutralized threats." The man nodded slowly. "So you've done this before?" "More times than I can count," Marcus said, "but never from this side. Never as the person trying to keep civilians safe while the real operators handle the situation." "Are there real operators on this ship?" someone else asked. Marcus shook his head. "Cruise ships don't carry armed security in international waters. It's a liability issue. The crew has protocols, but they're trained for evacuations and medical emergencies, not hostile boardings." "So what do we do?" "We survive," Marcus said simply. "We stay hidden. We stay quiet. And if the situation comes to us instead of being handled elsewhere, I handle it. Understood?" The silence that followed was heavy with fear, but also something else. A fragile trust forming between these strangers and the magician who just revealed himself to be something more. That's when the theater's rear doors opened. 3 men entered. Not ship security, not crew. They wore mismatched tactical gear, the kind pieced together from surplus stores and black markets. Kalashnikov rifles, face wraps, moving with the aggressive confidence of people who'd done this before. Pirates. The woman in the third row started to scream. Her husband clamped a hand over her mouth. The lead pirate raised his rifle. "Everyone stay." Marcus didn't let him finish. "Lights," he said quietly, and hit the control panel he'd positioned on the stage rail for exactly this kind of, well, not exactly this, but close enough. The theater plunged into complete darkness. 23 years of training took over. Marcus dropped from the stage, landed silently, and moved through the darkness with muscle memory that didn't need eyes. The theater layout was in his head, every row, every seat, every obstacle. The pirates fired, wild shots that ricocheted off empty seats. Passengers screamed but stayed low. Marcus circled, using the panicked gunfire as cover for his own movement. He reached the rear of the theater, came up behind the third pirate, the nervous one, firing randomly, and struck with precise efficiency. Throat punch to disrupt breathing, disarm, leg sweep, controlled descent to prevent noise. The pirate went down without ever knowing what hit him. The emergency lighting flickered back on. Marcus stood at the rear of the theater, holding a Kalashnikov, one unconscious pirate at his feet. The other 2 pirates spun toward him, weapons raising. "Don't," Marcus said quietly. His voice carried the flat certainty of someone who'd been in this exact situation before and knew exactly how it ended. "You fire in here. You kill civilians. You kill civilians, you have no leverage. No leverage means no payday. No payday means this was a suicide mission. The lead pirate's eyes narrowed. Who are you? Someone who's done this before. From your side and mine. I know how this plays out. Right now, your team is probably securing the bridge, the engine room, and the wealthy passengers in the suites. You're supposed to round up stragglers and create a second bargaining chip. The pirate's expression confirmed Marcus was right. Here's what happens next, Marcus continued. You walk away. Tell your boss the theater was empty. Tell him the passengers scattered. I don't care. But you leave these people alone, and I don't make you the example that brings the whole ship's security down on your operation. You're one old man with a rifle you don't know how to use, the second pirate said, younger, more aggressive. Marcus smiled without humor. He ejected the magazine, cleared the chamber with practiced efficiency, reassembled the weapon, and put 3 rounds through the velvet curtain beside the pirate's head in less than 4 seconds. The shots were so close, the fabric singed the pirate's shoulder. 23 years, Navy SEAL, maritime counter-piracy. I've been on both sides of this situation more times than you've been alive, so I'm going to ask one more time. Do you really want to do this? The lead pirate stared at him for a long moment, then lowered his weapon slightly. Who do you work for? Right now? These people. The pirate looked at the 300 passengers huddled in the darkness, then back at Marcus. Some calculation happening behind his eyes. Finally, he jerked his head toward the door. We were never here. Smart choice. The 2 conscious pirates dragged their unconscious companion out. The doors closed behind them. The theater stayed silent for exactly 5 seconds. Then someone started clapping. Then everyone. Applause erupted like a wave, 300 people releasing fear through gratitude. Marcus raised a hand. Stop. We're not safe yet. This is just a pause. He moved back to the stage, climbed up with less grace than he descended, and addressed the crowd. Here's our situation. This ship has been boarded by an organized pirate crew. They're after ransom, probably from the cruise line, possibly from individual wealthy passengers. They'll want to establish control quickly, secure key locations, and minimize resistance. How long until help arrives? Someone asked. Depends on where we are and what communications they've managed. Could be hours, could be a day. What matters is that we stay here, stay quiet, and stay alive until proper authorities handle this. A teenage boy raised his hand. Are you really a Navy SEAL? Marcus nodded. Was. Retired 16 years ago. Became a magician because I wanted to do something that made people smile instead of the other thing. The other thing being killing pirates? Among other things. An elderly woman in the front row spoke up, her voice surprisingly steady. Young man, what's your real name? Marcus paused. He hadn't used his real name in 8 years, but these people deserved honesty. Marcus James Wellington, Senior Chief Petty Officer, SEAL Team 3. Well, Senior Chief Wellington, she said with dignity, thank you for protecting us. My husband was Navy. He would have been proud to see what you just did. Something in Marcus's chest tightened. Ma'am, your husband would probably tell me I'm too old for this and should have stayed retired. She smiled. He would have. But he also would have done exactly what you did, because that's what sailors do. They protect people. For the next 4 hours, Marcus kept the theater locked down. He moved through the space like a sentry, checking exits, monitoring the corridor outside through the small window in the door, keeping passengers calm with a combination of military authority and the gentle presence they'd come to expect from the magician. Some passengers dozed, others whispered quietly. Parents comforted children. The elderly woman, whose husband had been Navy, sat near the stage and told Marcus stories about her late husband's service in Vietnam, creating a strange island of normalcy in the middle of a crisis. At 2:17 a.m., the ship's PA system crackled again. All passengers, this is Captain Morrison. The situation has been resolved. U.S. Coast Guard and Navy personnel have secured the vessel. The individuals who boarded have been taken into custody. Please remain where you are until crew members come to escort you to safe areas. Medical personnel are available for anyone who needs assistance. The theater erupted in relief, crying, hugging, the release of hours of suppressed fear. Marcus set down the Kalashnikov he'd been holding, unloaded but reassuring, and sat on the edge of the stage. A young girl, maybe 7, walked up to him. "Mr. Marcus?" "Yeah, sweetheart." "Was that your best trick?" Marcus laughed, a real laugh, the first in hours. "You know what? It might have been. Can you teach me? How to disarm pirates? How to be brave?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing what needs to be done anyway. You were brave tonight. You stayed quiet when it mattered. That's all anyone can ask. She hugged him. He hadn't expected it, hadn't expected how much he needed it. The Coast Guard interviewed him for 3 hours. The cruise line executives were less interested in his heroism than in potential liability. The passengers started a petition to have him permanently assigned to their route. But all Marcus wanted was to go back to his cabin, sleep for 12 hours, and wake up still being the magician instead of the SEAL. On the last night of the cruise, he performed his regular show. Same tricks, same jokes, same gentle entertainment. But afterward, when passengers lined up for photos, they looked at him differently. The elderly woman whose husband had been Navy was last in line. She handed him a folded flag. "This was my husband's. He would want you to have it. Ma'am, I can't. You protected 300 people with skills you hoped never to use again. You earned this more than most who carry one. Take it. Honor him by continuing to be both men, the warrior and the magician. Both matter." Marcus took the flag, held it like it weighed more than it should. Because it did. "So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Marcus, someone who built a second life far from their first? Someone who hoped never to use old skills again, but stepped up when needed? Someone whose gentle presence hid capabilities most people couldn't imagine? Tell us their story in the comments. Say their name. Tell us what city you're watching from today. Because at the Human Stories, we believe the greatest transformations are real. Warriors become teachers, soldiers become artists, protectors become entertainers, but when danger calls, they remember who they were and use those skills to protect who they've become. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Help us honor those who carry 2 lives, the one they lived and the one they built afterward. We publish human stories that matter every single week. We'll see you in the next one. And remember, if you ever meet someone whose current life seems too peaceful for their eyes, don't underestimate them. Because the quietest people sometimes carry the loudest histories. And when the moment comes, they'll show you why they survived long enough to become gentle.